Do you know what a lot of the top e-commerce brands do? They always focus on essence. And this is the principle that I'm going to get into today, because without it, your products, most likely, they won't sell as good as they could. You won't get as many leads as you can. And so for that very reason, essence is absolutely crucial. So think of essence as being the untold story. It's the story that's unspoken beneath the fabric of what they're wearing. And I just want to illustrate, based on these particular brands, what essence looks like in action and why that's the case. So here we've got this model, and that was mirrored by this particular brand here called Reformation. And we can see the similarities between this model and that model in terms of the overall vibe. Now, don't just necessarily focus purely on the visuals of what the model looks like. I want you to more focus on the emotion that's felt as a result of her posture, her gaze, and her expression overall, because that literally equals essence, all three of those parts. Okay. And we can see she's got a very loose, playful, carefree vibe, but then it's also backed up by that warmth because of the shining sun on her face. Yeah. As well as the sheen on her dress as well, with that golden hour lighting. That's basically the time of day where the sun's either rising or it's going down. Okay. So it's got this really warm feeling, warm, invited feeling. Now, if we contrast it to this, very serious, and what she's wearing as well is kind of formal. It's formal, right? It's serious vibes. It's a serious expression that she has. And by the way, all of these images that I've created, guys, they're on various tools, right? You may be wondering, like, what tool is this created on, etc. I don't cover just tools on this channel. I cover principles. And so what you're learning now in today's episode of Essence, which is the final part, by the way, of M.U.S.E, is a principle. And that means you can apply it in 3 years' time, 5 years' time, 7 years' time, and it will still be just as relevant. But anyways, okay, so this particular site is based on this particular pose, right? I wanted to mirror this pose because this is what's working. And mind you, they're selling things for 850 euros, okay? And this is the traffic of what they're getting on their site, around 200,000 people. So they're going to obviously want to optimize those people throughout the funnel, but that's what I'm going to get into shortly. So anyways, going back to this, sorry, I've got a very ADHD type of brain, so I just like to skip around in various stages. So this particular pose is very much aligned to that aesthetic. And same thing here as well. I tried to mirror this particular image with this particular woman here, and we can see it's aligned. And most importantly, in this particular example, it breaks the pattern because everything else just has a white background. And if you break the pattern, you grab people's attention emotionally as well as visually. Okay. So before this particular episode, I covered style. And style is what the brand decides in an e-commerce setting. So it's the clothing that the model was wearing, it's the lighting direction, it's all the visual components, okay? But essence is what makes her believable, right? It's the emotion behind the image. It's the story that's not being said or spoken out loud. It's what makes her believable. Style is just the product being sold, but essence is the person behind it. It's the person selling it. And like I said before, expression and emotion, in a nutshell, in a very simplified way, equals essence. Because what happens without essence? You get a model like that. Now, I don't know about you, but with the palm trees behind, the golden hour kind of lighting with the sunshine, it doesn't make sense that she's serious. It just does not add up, right? In my mind, it doesn't make sense that she's serious. So we want to make sure, guys, that we are making our image aligned and cohesive, okay? So when you compare her to that, it's much more aligned. It's much more cohesive. It goes, right? But this doesn't work. This just doesn't work. It's serious. Same thing here. This is the biggest example. Like, why on earth is she smiling? Like, almost giggling? Like, she's too happy, right? It just doesn't work with what she's wearing in a power pose. And then with what she's wearing, which is formal attire and black and white, like it just doesn't work, right? So that's what we mean by essence, guys. And here, you're not going to click that product and probably buy it if she's sad. But if she has a pose like that, an expression like that, you're going to want to buy it because you want to feel, as buyers, we want to feel what we're being advertised. We want to feel in this woman's shoes. We want to feel like we're that person. And that's why we'd buy a product. Okay, so keep that in mind. Now, getting back to this scenario. Again, I just want to preface this by saying that these are e-commerce stores. We don't know how many e-commerce stores that they've taken this data from. And I want to give you a scenario of what would happen if, let's say, half of them use the principle of essence, which is what we've gone through when the posture, the gaze, the overall expression of the particular AI model or model is aligned, and what that can make in terms of the conversion impact on sales. Let's say half of them are using essence as a principle and half of them are not. What does it look like financially? So we saw that on this particular website, it was around 200,000 views, okay, 225,000, but I rounded it down for the sake of simplicity. And so we can say that from that, 40%, because this is 43.8, I've rounded it down again for the sake of simplicity. So 80,000 product page views, and then 10% of those sessions convert into 20,000 add to carts, and then 3% of them buy, which equals 6,000 purchases. And you could say that that's a fair amount, right? 900,000 a month is pretty good for an e-commerce store of that caliber. Now, what happens if, let's say, all of them use that principles? Because I know, and I'm sure you've seen it as well, you go on some certain websites and you see models that are just photographed as basically mannequins, right? Just like this, from 4 different angles, like literally. So let's now imagine the opposite. Now, all of them had emotion as part of their brand and as part of their visuals. Now, that would mean that 50%, let's say you go from 43.8 to 50. Okay, so that's a 6% odd increase, or 6.2% increase. So 100,000 product page views. From 14.5 to 0.5 increase, or 15%, 30,000 add to carts. And then 1.7% increase from 3.3% to 5%. 10,000 purchases. Same AOV, so same average order value. That's 1.5 million. 1.5 million a month. We've gone from 900K, which is where only, let's say, we're assuming here, only half of the brands are using the principle of essence, to 1.5 million, a 600,000 pound increase. That's the difference that essence could potentially have, right? And I just wanted to kind of paint that scenario just so you can think in terms of the commercial impact of what applying this principle could do for your clients that you're working for, or for yourself if you had your own e-commerce store, right? What difference it could make. Now, why might you want to actually use essence? You may be thinking. Well, I'm just going to go into a bit of a detour / an anthropological lesson here. So human beings, Homo sapiens, pretty much in our current form, we've been around for 300,000 years. Okay, civilization basically is like the last 10,000 years, right? Since agriculture, since farming, and since capitalism as well, all of that. That's about civilization, that's 10,000 years. That's what most historians cover. But we're talking about Homo sapiens because we're talking on a limbic level, on a primal level, how we're wired. And we're wired emotionally. We're wired emotionally. And before the advent of the written word, the written, like even languages like that are so complex nowadays, we read each other by body language. We read each other by emotions. And if we go back to these particular sites, we want to feel like the model shown. And because we want to feel like the model shown, we end up buying the product. Okay, because the emotions are aligned with the aspiration of what the brands like Totem, etc., want us to feel as potential buyers. And if it's off, like we saw here, if it's off, like she's sad there when she shouldn't be, like, well, she's smiling, it just doesn't work. Because we don't want to necessarily feel happy. Of course, everyone wants to feel happy, but if you're wearing that, you want to feel powerful. You want to feel in control. It's basically how we operate at a fundamental level. So it's really important that you understand emotions and how you can use posture, gaze, and expression to really, really drive home the point of creating quality AI models with purpose, okay? So this concludes the entirety of the M.U.S.E series. If you are interested in getting access to this particular Miro board that we've been going through throughout this series, and it is quite long, it did take me a lot of hours to put together, you can get access to it by clicking the link down below. And likewise, if you are new to this particular channel and you want to know what on earth all of the other aspects as part of the M.U.S.E framework are about, then you can feel free to click a card above that will take you through the playlist from start to finish so you can get up to speed in no time at all. Okay, I'm still going up because this is how long this document is. This is how long this Miro report is. But yeah, get the idea of just how much it is.